Let's rock and roll. Good evening. Welcome to the Rules Reform meeting of May 25th. It's the 6:30. I'm Lynn Lakakis, chair of the committee, and I'd like to start us off tonight. Thank you all for coming with the roll call. So I have Jeff Kuhn.
Here.
Mark Grimm.
Here.
Andrew Joyce. I believe he's excused. Matt Miller.
Present.
Joe O'Brien.
Here.
Jeff Purley. I saw him. Bill Ricard.
Present, Madam Chairwoman.
And Wanda Willingham, who was here a moment ago.
You waved.
She waved. Okay. Hi, Wanda. So the first order of business is to take a look at the minutes, which were quite light and which I would like to amend, if I could, make a motion to amend them to reflect the people who were at the meeting.
Motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. I have a second.
Second.
Mr. Ricard, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so let there be attendees. All right. Sounds good. Thank you. So last time we talked about the open meetings law and the law that we had to draft to prepare ourselves to be in compliance with the law from the state. So Pat, I was going to say we've been working on it, but really Patrick has been working on it, and he has a draft, and we're hoping that we could have a look at it this evening and just the key points. And you're going to share your screen, Pat?
Yes, I can.
Thank
and I'm
you.
going to send it to everybody. And this is a work in progress, but we're getting where we want to go. So it should be on its way to all of you. The main thing is it's, of course, got to be consistent with the state law. That's number one. And it's written in that manner. And I don't want to take credit for doing this on my own. But if there's any bad parts, I'll take the blame on that end. But the majority council has definitely been, and deputy majority council have definitely been helpful in putting this together. Can you see it? When I share my screen, I can't tell what you people.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so
I can
standard
see it,
introductory
but I
language.
see it, but I can't move it. All I have is a very small.
No, you can't move it.
Right.
Only he can move it.
Oh, okay.
That's bigger now.
Is that better?
Bigger.
Make it a little smaller.
Yeah, no, it doesn't, yeah.
That's fine.
All right, well. There you go, zoom.
We're good? I can't see what you see. It's huge.
We're good.
on my screen.
We're good.
All right.
Good enough.
I had to make it a little smaller to get it all.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
So the intent here is to allow, the way the state law is written is it requires each public body being any entity that has to have, that's subject to the open meetings law. So we, of course, are. A lot of our boards and commissions are subject to, they are considered public bodies and they are subject to the open meetings law. So the intent
Okay,
here is
all
to
those would
allow-
come under us.
I'm sorry?
All those would fall under this rule as opposed to another rule for any other part of the county.
Well, the intent here is to make this allow for all public bodies of the county of Albany. So
That's what I
that
thought.
anyone who gained their authority from our charter or legislative act or executive act, things like the CRC or the IDA or the planning board, CAB, they're all public bodies. And this is intended to give them the authority so that they don't have to do it on their own, because the way the state law is written is that it requires them to have a public hearing and adopt a resolution after public hearing. Well, we can have one public hearing for all the public bodies of the county is the approach we're trying to take to this. And it sets rules in place that are consistent with the state law, but that also the rules so that everybody has to act the same. So there's no confusion. It will be a great benefit to the Department of Law to not have to interpret a bunch of different rules. There's one carve out where the rules are allowed a little leeway between the public bodies, and we'll get to that shortly. So Section, I guess, 1A1 is the minimum number of members of the public body sufficient to fill the public body's quorum shall be present. That's straight out of state law. We're bound by that. There's the way they adopted this, we're going to need physical presence at the meeting. The meeting's going to be open to the public, just the way it was pre-COVID. It's just how it is. The second one is the carve out for a member of the public body that is unable to be physically present due to extraordinary circumstances. And then it includes the ones that were listed in the state law. So again, we're consistent with the state law. The next three then is.
Well, can I just ask a question about 2 or just clarify?
Yeah, go ahead.
Those are all the things we discussed last time, except I was just wondering about the timing of the unexpected factor. Do you think that it matters? It probably doesn't.
We may flesh that out a bit in the next clause.
Okay.
A member who needs to participate in a meeting by video conference must provide advance notice and justification for their absence to the extent possible. If your issue comes up as you're driving in, I don't know that that's possible, that you can communicate to the relevant person that you are going to jump on the Zoom link. But after the fact, you can, of course. I mean,
Madam Chairwoman, can I say something on that?
Sure.
Thank you. Pat, just to expand upon that, I did speak to a member of our state legislative body, and this individual did relay to me one of the scenarios I had mentioned, last time was, an elder care or child care emergency situation, within a close proximity of the meeting, because apparently some of the state legislators brought that up at their conference too. So that would be a legal, from what I was told by this individual, a legal out clause or whatever you want to say. In addition to that, though, this individual also said that, and I don't know what it says in the rest of your document here, but that the chairman of the legislative body should make the call on this, as opposed
That's
to
the next section.
as opposed to an individual committee individual, because you didn't want to get into a situation where the elder care has one rules, but some other committee has a different rules, and then that was not a good situation. So wherever the chairperson is, obviously it's chairman choice at the present time. He would make the choice, but then in the future somebody else is, then obviously he or she would make that determination. So I just wanted to clarify that I can speak to somebody in our state legislative body, and that individual did relay that to me. So thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thanks, Bill.
On
Move to number
I think
Jeff.
on number 2, what are people's thoughts on adding on this list unusual professional officers? So you're called like Wanda, but tonight is out of town. But if she wants, it's not something typical, but if you're something like that, we add that to make it clear that if someone's out of town on business or something like that, that is an occasion where they could participate telephonically or video conference.
Was that covered at all, Pat or Rebecca?
I like going straight with the state law approach. Perhaps Mr. Kuhn's example would fall into other significant or unexpected factor. I think that while this isn't the complete universe of excuses, the more reasons to not be there, it's starting to create a complete universe. But there's definitely leeway there. I just want to point something out. Mr. Kuhn said teleconferencing. The law does require, I think he corrected himself, it does require video conferencing. So, and in fact, the pre-COVID rules required video conferencing, not teleconferencing. So there, if you weren't able to get on Zoom and were attempting to come in remotely, it's got to be on a video or you're absent. That's just the way the law is written.
Yeah, so here, I hear you. My only thing is that I feel like that's going to come up, and it's going to come up fairly quickly. I just feel like it's gonna come up. Why not be clear that we're saying that is an occasion that people can do video conferencing? Because it just seems like it's one of the instances that people are going to use, and if we don't put it in there, then there's going to be a debate. Well, wait a minute, so and so, they're calling in, and the only reason they're calling in is because they're on a business trip. I don't think that fits within it. Well, if we're going to either it fits in it or it doesn't, but why not be clear about whether or not it does fit in to eliminate debate about a scenario that I think is very likely to come up.
Yeah, Lynn?
Yes, go ahead. And
Yeah, I think to Jeff's point, I think this is bias against business people, because sometimes you have to travel on business and it's on the client's terms because they want you there. And you can't move the date. So if I have some, big speech scheduled, it's not like I said, gee, can you change your conference? But anyone on business really has to adhere to the client's schedule. So without allowing out of town on business, you're really saying, I'd rather you not attend the meeting than attend it by video. Now, does that make sense when we're trying to get greater participation? I don't think it does. So that's what I'd like to see out of town and business as a significant factor or event.
I tend to agree with you, Pat. Would if in the next section where you have to provide a written piece of something, you have to provide like a doctor's note or something. If you are required by your another job to go out of town, do you think that couldn't fall in at all if people seem like they want to do that? Many times I've had to miss a meeting because not many times, twice, maybe once, because I was out of town on for a business reason as opposed to vacation.
Yeah, especially since these are part-time jobs here. Most people have other livelihoods.
Well, for that matter, why should a vacation? Right? Okay, I said unusual professional, but why not? Somebody's out of if Lynn's out of town on vacation, why wouldn't we want to do everything we could to allow her to participate in the meeting?
Yeah.
Why would her constituents want her to be able to participate in the meeting?
All right, Paul's got his hand up, and then we'll take a straw poll and see where we are with this and then decide what to do next.
Yeah, here's my 2 cents. I really think our circumstances for not attending should be as limited as possible. The idea is not to all of a sudden create. I mean, we have people who are in, Washington 3 weeks out of a month. They're on business. We have people who vacation in other states for extended periods of time. I don't think that this statute was meant to accommodate them. It was truly to accommodate an emergency. And if it was not an emergency before COVID, I'm not sure that we should be broadening the set of circumstances by which people do not have to attend. That's my own 2 cents.
Thank you for your 2 cents. Who else is here? Matt, do you have a thought? Do you have a yay or nay, or what do you think? Are you there? No. Okay. We know how Mark feels. We know how Joe. You leaning in a direction, or?
Well, I'm leaning and to very limited, Zoom meetings. I think people should be attending these meetings should be in person. We were elected to serve the people of Albany County, and I believe it in that sense we should just be able to attend these meetings, unless of course there's a medical emergency, and that's it. That's for me. That's my 2 cents.
All right, so the people who are here are sort of split on that. So let's park that one and move forward. See where we go next.
Sure.
Right. So the next requirement, I think I started to get into it, is the justification for the absence. So it's mainly a notice provision. Like Mr. Ricard spoke to someone at the state, and I will just say this: this law is silent on who adjudicates the excuse. The state law is silent, and because the state law is silent, this is it's not explicit on that. They just didn't give us guidance on what is actually an excuse, and that's bothersome. But we're working with what we have in here because we're trying to make this universal for all the public bodies of the County of Albany. We specifically carve out who gets notice, and this is subject to change. We're at the draft stage for the legislature. For the purposes of the county legislature, such notice shall be provided to the clerk, the chairperson, and the respective committee chair. Here, that'd be Ms. Lakakis. Right now, it's as well as your caucus leader, so the majority or minority leader. This makes sense to me. It's subject to change.
Pat, I got a question.
Yes.
You're naming like 5 people, but you're not really naming the pecking order of the people. And is it a situation where you ask one person, and if they say yes, then you press on, or are we notifying everybody at the same time? Are we sending an email? Are we sending it? Because I could see very easily could send an email to all 5 of those people and say, hey, I'm having a surgery tomorrow, and the next day I have a meeting. I'd like to take it. If I'm not on drugs, I would like to be present via Zoom. And then is there a yay or nay, or you're just, this says notify?
This is a notification clause. Yeah, this is a notification clause because the state law doesn't really have a adjudication clause in it. It just says, I think it's expecting everybody to be on their best behavior, if I'm honest. But we got to know if we expect you on Zoom. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
3 years ago, we all walked down the hall from where I am currently into the caucus room, and the meeting was there. And if you didn't show up, we knew you weren't present. But do we turn on the computer or the video conferencing in anticipation of you starts to become the question. Well, we need notice to know to do so. So we always have a camera because we've been above and beyond the public officers law in terms of making sure the public has the ability to view our meetings. We've been streaming since before we were required to. This body's been, it predates me. I mean, we've been doing good, very good, if I might say so. So we are as open as you can be in terms of our public facing side. But if you're gonna not be present at the caucus room, because again, a quorum has to be present in whatever room it takes place, be it chambers or the caucus room for committees. Are we waiting on extra people? So that's the notice provision. And then the adjudication of whether or not that's a valid excuse is silent in the state law. How do I have it? The requirement of documentation to satisfy is also allowed in here. Where were you is ultimately a question, or where are you, I guess, because if you're going to participate, you're going to have to let us know where you are before you participate or during. So the ultimate goal here, I think, with the state legislature is to have public meetings back in public in person. But these are extraordinary circumstances, carve-outs. And then they went and put in some extra rules as to what constitutes those circumstances. And I think they tried to generally have rules about how could it possibly mesh between the hybrid and the in-person. Well, I'm not going to get into those details tonight because they start to get technical and nuanced, and I'm already boring you, so I don't want to bore you anymore. But the main things are who's going to get notice. We have a requirement for notification or documentation if necessary. And in here, you can see for the purposes of the county legislature, it's written currently to govern ourselves or yourselves. But the next clause is other public bodies of the county shall adopt policies related to who is to receive such notice. Again, the intent here is for all of the bodies of the county to piggyback off of this, but they're going to have to know who to notify, and they're going to have to adopt those rules. And at the end, there's all of these things should be published on the county website, so the public has some sense of what's actually going on. But
Pat, do we need to say something which says any correspondence to this to effectuate these provisions shall be public documents?
Can't be if it's
yeah, you're gonna
illness, it can't be public.
Yeah, it's going to be HIPAA. That's actually thought of. The leadership of the public body may require any member requesting to participate in a meeting by video conferencing to provide documentation to the extent possible, supporting such request. And here's where your question goes. And may publicly confirm that such document was received without publicly stating the contents of each document.
Okay.
If it's a HIPAA issue, it's not going to be subject to FOIL and whatnot.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes
Pause
sense.
it for you.
And there's other privacy things that get beyond HIPAA that may not be subject, but yes, I think it's safe to say that the leadership may have a distinct or special interest in knowing. In this instance, the leadership, maybe Ms. Lakakis as the chairperson of this committee, knowing where you are. And she should be given, this is giving the authority to figure that out, to know where the members are, to know who has to be in person or who should be likely in person, without disclosing private information to people where it's not any of their business.
Joel's got a hand up.
Yeah, I can, to prevent any abuse of this, is there going to be a limit per member? A cap on it?
There is not anything in this draft. I will also say that that's kind of dangerous, because if somebody's on hard times physically with their health, I mean, that's a difficult one. They're still able to participate, but due to certain circumstances, they may not be able to participate in person.
Bill?
I can see abuse. I can just see abuse of this. That's my. I don't mind excusing or allowing one or two times, but I can see, a member abusing it, and I just don't want that to happen.
Well, during this past COVID year, there were a couple of members who were ill for quite some time, 4 months maybe, and were able to participate. And you didn't know that they were ill because we were on Zoom. So it's interesting to think about it, but I would kind of hope that we would keep each other accountable and we wouldn't take advantage of the situation. Now, the couple things that were mentioned earlier, like going to Florida for 3 months or 4, that's not a work-related problem or an illness problem. That's a vacation or want to get away for 4 months, in my humble opinion. So, but I think medical stuff is probably a lot easier to get documentation about than, any of those other things that we said, the caregiving and the, I don't know, we get called a lot, but go ahead. Bill, you got your hand up?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Couple of things. Back to my question, though. Let's give the specific scenario. It's 5 o'clock. I get a call. I got an elder care situation. I can participate in the video conference. Let's say it's 6:30 right now. So what do? Do I text Lynn and say, hey, or Madam Chairwoman Lakakis, do I text her and say, hey, I can't be there, but I can do a video conference? Is that the proper procedure, or how would that be handled?
Seems like it to me. You'd have to tell those 4 people, and then I would probably say, sure, give me your phone number, and you call Pat or whoever is in charge of setting up the Zoom, and we'll have to set up a Zoom. So if we were in the room, we would have to set up a Zoom and you'd have to come in that way. And I don't know how you'd get reflected on the film, but I'm thinking possibly that your head could face the film, the camera, on the laptop of some kind or a smaller screen.
Well, you could do it on your phone too, right? You could do the video on your phone, I assume too, right?
Yeah, but the way I understand it, the public has to see that it's you. We have to see that it's you. It has to be
Exactly.
visible. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. But to your,
But I think that would be the perfect opportunity. That happens when you have an elder care, like people
Yes.
don't show up and you have to still be there. You don't
Yes.
necessarily have to not be paying attention. You just have to be there.
that's absolutely correct. And that was my concern. But, to the point though, I am somewhat concerned though. This could be an excessive. Now, if it's a healthcare situation and somebody's sick and they can't be, that is totally understandable. But if you're a snowbird and you go down to Florida the entire winter, I don't think personally that's an appropriate situation to not be in a Zoom meeting every month or several meetings a month. I don't think
Jeff was after you when you.
But yeah, I don't think that's appropriate. So like Joe alluded to. So extreme circumstances, absolutely. But I think we got to be clear and specific as possible. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Okay,
Well,
Jeff,
the snowbird instance wouldn't comply with that, right? That's not, I can't scroll up on this, but the language of the statute says like it's got to be unusual or significant or something like that. So somebody who just decides to be a snow is any of the significant or unexpected factors. Well, I guess significant is that's the sort of fudge, right? What's significant to one person isn't to another. But the language that I propose, unusual professional obligation, right? That's not just deciding to be a snowbird. I don't think though we should be talking about sort of limiting this, like having a limited number of things. I don't think we should be the police or something like this. If somebody's got a medical situation, we don't want them to basically have to quit because they have to come in, whereas they can participate via video conference. And ultimately, this isn't for us to police. This is between an elected official and their constituents, right? And I don't think it's really up to me to say one of my other colleagues is taking advantage of this too much. That's what elections are for. And if somebody feels like they need to do this, or especially for a medical reason, do it as much as you want. I'd rather see that than have to see somebody basically not at the meeting. I mean, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about trying to make provisions to allow people to be at the meeting, to participate. And so I don't know, I'm just not in favor of any sort of arbitrary limit because we don't know what anything's going to do.
yeah. Wanda has her hand up too.
She did. She does. There she
Here
is.
she goes. She's coming.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I have to first of all admit that this is kind of awkward for me because I am using my phone and I don't have a big, huge phone. Okay, so it seems as if that we're making some new rules of attendance for the members. Okay, and so I recall issues surrounding, let's say, not too long ago, attendance at caucus. Okay, and whether or not caucus would be, included in this. And I don't know, because I don't know if we actually resolved that, that issue. So if we're going to be making rules in regards to attendance, I think we got to be real careful here of what we are saying. I thought I heard somebody mention it, a little piece of it, but that's my concern. Okay. And how we're going to, we're talking about our colleagues, we're talking about members. It's like we're taking attendance, and I know we do it, but right now there doesn't appear to be any type of backlash if you're not in attendance. So I heard Joe say he feels that people should physically be present, at our meetings. And I'm assuming that he met in chambers. Is that correct, Joe?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and which I agree with him also. 100%. I would have to say that. I don't know what the consensus is when it comes to committee meetings. Okay. I mean, as you can see, I don't know anybody on this meeting right now that is in the office. Okay. Or if it's even offered. And so would this same ruling that we're trying to come up with also have to be adhered to as far as committee meetings are concerned? Okay. And
Yes.
and who gets to decide whether or not somebody's attendance is deemed legal, and are we applying these same rules to, personnel? Can they,
All good questions.
are they in this also?
I'm sorry.
That I have.
Wanda, personnel we are not, well, staff is not members of the public body. This only applies to public bodies, so it wouldn't apply to situations like you were mentioning caucus earlier, which is a private, non-public event. So there are differences here. This state law and this law as currently drafted, and which has not yet been introduced, of course. So this is all kind of a little bit premature, but this only applies to public meetings to require that the members of the public body appear at those public meetings, and that the general public is aware of who is attending and who is not. Things that are like foilable and that sort of thing.
Okay, so are we saying that we are not allowing ourselves to come in virtually?
Well, we're sort of teasing out the times at which that coming in virtually would be acceptable. So far, it's pretty clear that if you have an illness and you're functional, that you may request to come in. We're talking about disability, illness, caregiving responsibilities, and any other significant or unexpected factor or event which impacts your ability to attend. So that's kind of vague, and that's kind of what we've been talking about. Is a last minute elder care situation, a last minute child care situation? Would you rather have the person be in attendance than miss the meeting? So that's sort of where we are. Some people would rather have people miss the meeting, it sounds like. And people do miss the meeting when they choose to go to Florida for the winter. And they have missed a certain amount of meetings. They just make sure they come to all the rest of them. I personally don't like to miss a meeting. And if I could figure out how, if I had to go away for another job or something, that would be a good way to participate to me, provided that it didn't happen a lot and that I didn't feel like I was missing anything. But that's sort of what we're talking about here. We seem like we're not really all in agreement on how we would like it to go.
Okay, I just wanted to, voice that I agree with some of the comments. I mean, like right now, I'm on vacation, okay? But I choose to come into this meeting because I feel it's important. I feel that my attendance is important, okay? And so how are we going to judge things like that? I could attend the meeting, but not be legally present. You understand what I'm saying?
Right. And like tonight, we're not voting on anything. So like tonight, it wouldn't matter anyway. But yeah. Do you have any more questions, Wanda? Because we got a couple more hands.
No, I just wanted to get that out. That's all.
Good. We love hearing from you. Mr. Grimm?
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. So I could be in my hotel room in Los Angeles and have a presentation the next morning. But I said, gee, I really want to participate in the meeting. So if a business trip is not considered a significant factor, I wouldn't be able to participate in the meeting via Zoom. So are we telling my constituents, it's better off, Mark, that you don't represent them at the meeting and that you don't vote on their behalf because of this rule? It's crazy. And to Jeff's point, I don't need other members judging me about what I think is appropriate participation at a meeting. If you want to have a certain point of view, fine, you can keep it to yourself. But I don't need other members telling me what I should do in terms of participating in a meeting. Frankly, the best way to be a good member is to really do your homework. So do we want to judge all their members and how well they do their homework prior to a meeting? Because that has as much influence on a meeting as whether you're there by video or you're there in person.
Madam Chairwoman, if I could just make a note briefly.
Yes.
These standards are solely for not whether you participate, because you can participate regardless. You're a member of the legislature and you can participate. This is whether you're counted for quorum and whether you can vote. So if you want to come and make your voice heard, you absolutely can.
Well, but you make
Whether
your voice heard
that's
with
on
your
Zoom
votes.
or otherwise.
That's how you make your voice heard. You make your voice heard with votes. You're not allowed to really participate in the full sense of the term. Which is it's crazy.
Clarification.
You'd rather say, no, we'd rather, if you're on vacation even, we'd rather you miss the meeting. We'd rather
If I
you miss the
could.
meeting than participate by Zoom.
I don't know who the you was there, and I didn't take it personally, but the we there, I guess, is not us. It's the state legislature, the way they did this. This is not hybrid meeting laws. This is get back in public unless there's extraordinary circumstances. And I think your frustration should be delivered up the hill.
But Patrick, the language, how we interpret the language is up to us, is it not?
I
Significant factor means you're a business trip. Is that a significant factor? Yes or no?
It sounds to me like it's
was
gonna be
already told that
interpreted.
I already heard bias against business people. So
Yeah.
I would never write anything that's biased towards anyone. But
Well, my question is the significant factor is vague. Is the significant factor the fact that you're away on business?
I think
Vague is good.
I think prioritization of your public service is key when serving in your public role.
Oh, so now you get to decide for members how they prioritize how they serve their constituents. Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say that at all, but I will.
Well, that's what you
say-
did.
Well, I think we've drafted language which has not yet been introduced, so it's not yet in its final state. It won't be in its final state till it's adopted by the members of the legislature. So any 20 members who choose to vote in favor of whichever version is ultimately adopted will be the ones who decide this. Obviously, staff does not decide this. We're merely trying to do the background work and guess at what members might be interested in.
The other thing that I was not really thinking about, but maybe a vague interpretation is better because it allows for more flexibility in whoever's receiving the notice. And yeah, anyway.
Well, as a lawyer, I'll tell you that vagueness just leads to argument.
You know, your microphone is kind of choppy there. What'd you say again?
I just said, as an attorney, vagueness just leads to arguments about things, which is what I mean, people are going to say, well, I don't think that's, I don't think your business trip fits within this. And somebody else is going to say, well, I think it does, it's significant. That's why I suggested that maybe we try to be as specific as possible. That's the thing. I mean, what do we want? Do we want to be vague and allow people to make that call, but that might contribute to sort of people arguing with each other about whether or not they're using it.
Yeah. All right. So it seems like we still have quite a few questions. Oh, Paul, you have your hand up and then we're going to move on, I think.
I hate to disagree with my colleague, Mark, but I don't believe that this carve out to the public officers law was meant to allow people to go to California and make a speech and participate. And I can see all sorts of potential conflicts with that. I can also see other conflicts, which is, gee, my granddaughter broke her leg and has chosen to recuperate in Florida, and I need to go down to Florida for 3 months to help her family provide daycare. I'm not sure that this statute was designed to do that, designed to create those type of opportunities. Let's think about what we had to do before COVID. We had to be there or not be there. And I recognize the pressure that says, well, we can use technology to do a lot of other things, but I'm not sure that that's what the public expects us to do. So I'm sort of with Joe and Jeff for that matter, which is I think we've got to be fairly specific about what circumstances allow someone to participate via Zoom and have their vote count. Now, that doesn't stop anyone from being in California and being able to participate in a meeting and represent their constituents. But if it creates a conflict with their legislative job, maybe their vote shouldn't count, which is what I heard someone else say before. It doesn't limit your participation, but it eliminates your being counted towards a quorum and a vote. So I'm more on the conservative side of implementation.
Thank you. Pat, is there anything else you want to talk about this evening? Shall we?
The remainder of it is just, it's not, I don't know how to put this. It's
Clear.
basically boilerplate from the state law. It's all the requirements they have about where postings happen, what's the case for executive sessions. It's verbatim what they did. So we're bound by that no matter what. So I don't think it's subject to any sort of debate.
All right, so you're gonna sleep on it and then have a little more time with it, or what is the plan?
I sent it to you all. I'm happy to hear any feedback you may have. And obviously this discourse has been productive, but if we were looking to do this for introduction in June, that's next Thursday at noon. So.
Okay, so it sounds like you're saying if anybody wants to make any comments to you, they have to do it in the next 2 days. And today is Wednesday, right?
Yeah, and please speak to your respective counsel. I don't want to be the only person involved in it. I want to share some blame.
Oh, so is there anything else that anybody wants to say?
May I ask that it be sent to all members and not just the members?
Yes, that is. Yep, absolutely.
And our council happens to be on vacation this week.
Oh,
You may have to.
Too bad he couldn't participate by Zoom.
can't vote.
I think he's here.
He was here before.
Well, Zoom would allow that.
That's right. He could be paying no attention, but it's just on. But anyway, one problem at the time. So, is there anything else you'd like to discuss, or have you had enough?
Lynn, just,
Yes.
I know we talked about it last time, but what the present rule on this, is it June 9th that it ends?
So, and Rebecca and Brandon, and I think Arnis is here. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm gonna bite my tongue. This law that the state gave us, it's interesting, but it didn't have a June 9th deadline. It said that you have to pass rules pursuant to this to be under those new rules within, I think, 60 days of the passage of this. And that's the date that falls on June 9th. But here's the thing. It also carves out the current situation, which is if we're operating under an emergency declaration due to health and safety, we may continue to operate in this manner. So the June 9th deadline is, we're going to blow past it because we're operating under different clauses of the law. But if the emergency declaration would be lifted, then we would have blown the June deadline. We would be back in chambers.
Well, I guess that's my question then, Lynn. Do we have that conversation about the June meetings? Do we go back in chambers? I mean,
yeah, good question. So the state law has a carve out that suggests that we can operate under essentially what we're operating under right now.
Right.
Is the easiest way to relay that. But and there's no prohibition on when that ends. When that permission under the public officers law ends, and right now COVID's pretty bad. I don't know when the governor's executive order will end. but it has been renewed until at least June 15th. So for the purposes of the June 9th meet, I think it's June 9th, June 13th, maybe? For the purposes of the June monthly meeting, unless the governor pulls the executive order before its expiration, we will be meeting on Zoom.
Well, it says we can be in Zoom, right, Pat? But it doesn't mean we can't come back in chambers. I guess that's the question I wanted to
Oh, yeah,
ask.
that's a different question. Sorry.
Everything else is open. Schools are open. We're in our businesses. I know the numbers are high. I know we have older members and some people are, concerned about COVID, but we have our stadiums open. We have, our county stadium. Everything else is open. Why are we not back in? That's what I keep hearing from my constituents is if everybody else can go back to business, why aren't we back in business?
Good question.
What do people think?
You hear a lot, like people are like, why isn't the county legislature back? You hear a lot of that?
Yeah, school boards are back. I mean, Albany City Council is back. Everybody else is back. We're one of the few people that are still out there doing things, other than Town of Bethlehem, Jeff. I know, but
I haven't heard anything like that.
Yeah, I haven't heard boo, like somebody complaining. that
Just
we're
out of
not.
curiosity.
Yeah.
But I hear their point, but everybody I know has COVID, so I don't want to go. But I work every day in a place that I have to go to, so it's been kind of fun for me not to have to go and breathe more germs there's 39 of us too. The school boards are usually 6 people and they can get in a big auditorium and spread out and be quite comfortable. As you noticed, our room is pretty tight and I guess we could go to the Civic Center or something. Anyway.
well, yeah, that's okay. I just want to go on record. I think we should be back.
You noted, yeah. Thank you for that. Anything else, anybody? All right, well, sounds like it might be dinner time then. We did have a small semi-little meeting about the, what was that meeting about?
It was about the
Residency. And,
residency requirement.
and so we're gonna have another little pre-meeting and then we'll probably have something for you next month to have a look at and think about. And just want to let you know that so you're aware that was been happening. And the meeting was with some staff and councils and human resources and different perspectives of how it impacts different departments. And so we wanted to have as much information as we could before we move forward if we're going to do anything. So more about that next time. I guess it's time to wrap us up. So I'll take a motion to.
Motion.
Mr. Ricard and the second, anybody? Mr. Grimm?